Andrew. How are you?
Great to have Nicholas aboard. Saw the YouTube with Mark and Nicholas. That was great.
Can you hear me, Andrew?
Yeah, I gotcha.
Great. All right, hi everyone. We're just waiting for people to file in and we'll get started shortly.
It's an ever-changing landscape.
Oh, I hear.
Good to see you in here, Ruth, my latest follower.
All right, let's get started. Welcome, everyone. My name is Tia Wood, and I run the WP Girls, and I'm here co-hosting with Andrew Palmer of Somebody's Hero. All right, and we welcome you and thank you for attending. We're here to discuss the latest developments in the WordPress community about WPEngine and Matt's Q&A at WordCamp US. So this space is being recorded just to give you guys a heads up. It sparked some controversy among the community and even in the news. And the latest headlines read, Matt Mullenweg calls WPEngine a cancer to WordPress and urges community to switch providers. That was from TechCrunch. An Automatic CEO and WordPress co-creator creates rival a cancer, an alarming claim from MSN. So furthermore, I think we could have a more productive discussion where we can discuss the angles and solutions. And so there shouldn't be headlines when people look up news about WordPress. I think the message has been lost. So if you would like to speak, you can DM me or Andrew, and we will give you those capabilities. Otherwise, keep your mics muted so the speaker can be heard. And also, please be aware that there are talks of lawsuits, so don't say anything you might potentially not want recorded. So we'll start off by reading some of the opinions already floating around on Twitter, and then open the discussion to our first speaker, Andrew Palmer, and then after Andrew, whoever else wants to speak. Please note that personal attacks will not be tolerated, but let's keep the discussion civil. Let's hear opinions, but also stay focused on solutions and how to move forward. So I'm going to start out by reading some of the existing tweaks and get a feel for the current sentiment in the community. So John Frascos, and I hope I'm pronouncing these right, tweets, that was contribution shaming on stage in an event where the vibes should be uplifting and united for the entire community, not dividing us further. I can't imagine how bad I'd feel if I were in the WPEngine team. which I think that is a good point to make. We have to remember that there are real people involved who have worked hard to contribute to their companies and to WordPress, and they are the unwilling participants caught in the middle. Jeffrey Benke, again, I apologize if I'm not pronouncing that correctly. He tweets, in 20 years with clients using WordPress, I have never had to explain the difference between WPEngine and WordPress. I have on so many occasions had to explain the difference between WordPress.com and .org. And I also want to note on the 5 for Future website itself, it says the 5% and 5 for Future is an aspirational target, not a strict requirement. It represents a goal to contribute 5% of your time or resources to the WordPress project, recognizing that any contribution, no matter the amount, is valuable. So on there it lists WPEngine, and it says WPEngine sponsors 11 contributors for a total of 40 hours per week across 5 teams. And Andrew, this is your post. It says, but you have explicitly said dozens of times, if not hundreds, you are free to make WordPress do what you want, even if you do not like it. So from our Bill of Rights under WordPress, it says, WordPress is licensed under the General Public License, which provides 4 core freedoms. Consider this as the WordPress Bill of Rights. The freedom to run the program for any purpose, the freedom to study how the program works and change to make it do what you wish, the freedom to redistribute, the freedom to distribute copies of your modified version to others. So, with that being said, I absolutely respect Matt Mullenweg for what he has done for WordPress and the community. And he's even brought up some points that we should consider about WPEngine and other companies. However, I think this has been the way how this has been brought up has caused more confusion than anything and has muddled the message he was trying to convey. So, Andrew, I want to hear more about your thoughts on the matter. You recently had some time with Matt, and what are your thoughts now and where we should go from here? Uh-oh, it looks like. 1 second, Andrew. All right, I got you approved again.
You got to let me in again. That's it. I'm letting.
There you go.
Sorry. I live in the UK. We've got a rubbish internet connection, so I lost my connection. Welcome everybody. Thanks, Tia, for that. My thoughts are, it was unnecessary, basically, to end a WordCamp like that. Everybody's on the up. They've been delighted to meet people and have a good session with loads of other people. You know, the showcase was fantastic. I watched it all online. I couldn't make it this year, unfortunately. And you know, the advertisers stroke sponsors, they were there in good faith, pretty much. And they're there to really help the community become better and more. So to end a keynote like that with a Q&A like that was a bit, in my view, unnecessary. Well, a lot unnecessary, actually. And if you've got some issues and you're the CEO of a big company and you also technically own WordPress.org, then I think that these conversations should remain behind closed doors. And as we all know, it's not obligatory to give 5 for the future. And I've just seen a tweet where a guy tweeted to WPEngine saying, you know, why don't you just contribute? And then he got a tweet from a collaborator or someone saying, you know, here's all the contributors. I don't see your name on the list. And I think what Matt has done by taking WPEngine to task is actually given permission to people that contribute to go aggressively against people that don't, or who are not seen to contribute. And we've got to remember that WPEngine rescued ACF, and we've got to remember that they've just bought NitroPack, so it affects all of the businesses that they encompass. And also there's a lot of hardworking people at WPEngine. Now, I've got my own reasons for not using them, I used to use them in a very large capacity, and I don't like their restrictive practices on caching, and I can't get into the I can't get into File Manager and do the things that I want to do. But I'm never really going to criticize another business in this space. I've openly criticized WordPress.org or the core by saying, why are you putting this in? Where's the data? Why do we need it? But I think Matt has made a serious error of judgment. And I wrote a blog post about it. And he was kind enough to ask me to have a meeting with him yesterday. I had an hour with him yesterday. And we talked about a lot of stuff, WordPress and everything, but he just wanted to correct some things that I'd got wrong as far as the foundation, who runs it, who's the board, etc., etc. He didn't, I do have quite a strong go at him. And it's very odd seeing somebody on Zoom, having a chat with them, going through a blog post that is openly criticizing them and saying, just stop, just stop doing this, because it's not conducive to a great atmosphere. And that's my view. I admire anybody that has built a piece of software, either via a community or by whatever, that everybody can use and everybody can profit by. But if you've put it into your constitution, let's say, the philosophy of saying you don't need to give back, but it would be great if you could, then you shouldn't be named and shamed for not giving back. And I think this is more of a situation where WPEngine are making a lot of profit. And I believe that big companies like Awesome Motive, who have a revenue of 100 million, that Brainstorm Force, who's got a large revenue as well, any large plugin developer or any large plugin supplier or theme supplier that makes in the millions, I think they should give 5% back. I've got no problem doing it myself. Every time I develop a website, I donate to the foundation. That's my choice. I'm not forcing anybody to do that. But I think that even as freelancers and agencies, we can decide to donate just a little bit to the foundation to keep the WordPress community support going, because they dish out all the money. So I think it's up to all of us to contribute if we can, or if we feel that we can, either financially or by giving time. And I think it's great. Kudos to people that do contribute and giving their own time. But we've also got to find a way to get rid of the begging bowl of WordPress, of contributors asking to be sponsored, of WordCamps asking to be sponsored. It's a phenomenal amount of money. It's not just the 75 grand that these higher end advertisers spend. The other 30 grand that they spend on getting their staff in, right? So it's or maybe 50 grand, But I think Matt's problem was the messaging on WPEngine's actual stall. The best WordPress solution, and the misuse of the branding WordPress hosting. I think if anybody's got a hosting company, they can say, we do hosting for WordPress, and I don't think that breaks any of the trademark rules, because what I want Matt to want is, rather than brand protection, I want him to have an idea of brand projection. So work with everybody and just project the brand, use the brand names, but use them appropriately, rather than say WordPress hosting or WooCommerce hosting, say hosting for WooCommerce. It's really that quite simple. And that's my underlying view, is I think he made a mistake doing what he did and in the tone of voice that he did. I think he also made a mistake by mentioning Canada, and also mentioning a situation where if he wasn't around anymore, then things are going to get crazy. But
definitely
the whole tone, and I've watched this video 3 times so that I get the facts right. And we've got to just take a little step back. It's all gone legal now, so everything's allegedly. But I think they've got an opportunity as grown-ups to meet, greet, have a little chat, say, listen, guys, I was over the top. I do tend to not let these things go. I do tend to just go for it because I'm so passionate about the WordPress project. Yes, I make money from WordPress because of Automatic. I make money from other things that I do because of Audrey. Yes, I invested in you in the beginning, and other people have invested in me that some people
Hello.
are happy about. So you've got to be open and willing to really challenge your own views about what you require from people. And I've just noticed that Matt's come in the room, which is great. And
yes, hello, welcome, Matt.
And I think we've got an opportunity now to build bridges, maybe in a room with some lawyers and just say, guys, this really got a little bit too over the top. Let's do a compromise agreement. You behave yourself on the branding, I'll behave myself on the rhetoric, and we'll all be happy and we can move the WordPress project forward. And with that, if Matt, if you want to speak and comment on stuff that you may have heard me say, please do.
Sure. And looks like we have a number of people here. I came in actually to apologize because I did want to come and speak on this situation, but this is now all in the realm of lawyers. So
Right.
This is going to play out with the top lawyers in the world. And yeah, so I can't really speak too much more on it. But
well, that's okay.
I was hoping to talk about it, but this is now all in that realm.
Cool. Are you happy to stay and listen to what other people have got to say? You've had my perspective.
I'm happy to take questions if you have any questions.
Oh, cool. So we had a nice little conversation, you and I, yesterday. It was great, and very open and very in fact, just very open. And you allowed me to amend my blog for factual purposes. And I was saying that it was very odd to be in front of someone that I openly criticised, and you took it well, and it's all great. So if we can ask you questions, then we'll ask you questions. We may open the room to people to ask questions. Tia may have some, but obviously because of the legal situation, you're going to have to answer them carefully, right?
Of course, yeah. But I'm happy to answer whatever you like. So whatever you want to ask.
And I have a question, if I can go.
Yeah, you can go. Absolutely.
Hey, Matt, Hashim Warren. One of the things that WPEngine said in their blog post is that, hey, we give back, but not necessarily the core. We have these plugins, we have these themes, we support the agency community. What's your feeling about what they said about how they give back?
I love that they did the blog post because it was really highlighted how much they promote themselves and see that as their contributions. So their advertising, their marketing, everything they're doing to sell more WPEngine services, they see as their contributions, which I don't think is fair.
Matt, I've got a question. What do you feel about the fact that Five for the Future page says that it's not an obligation, it's more like an inspiration? And then how do you feel about what other large companies in the ecosphere, the WordPress ecosphere, how they feel about your rhetoric around contribution on Friday, Friday, when you had that Q&A? How do you think they feel? Do you think they feel fearful, or of are we contributing enough? Is Matt going to have a go at us about this, or do you think they feel comfortable with what they're giving back?
I think this is a pretty singular and unique situation in that there's a lot of brand confusion for people thinking that WPEngine is officially like WordPress engine or associated with us or something like that. So it's pretty unique in the ecosystem. Yes, Five for the Future, it's an idea. It's just this idea that hey, if we work on this thing together, it'll be better. It's very simple. It's not very formal or strict or it's not a set of rules. It's all self-reported. It's more a philosophy than I would say a program. But it does. Its absence can be very much felt when a company is making, over $500 million from WordPress and putting basically nothing into things. They're only spending money on things that promote their own services, like WordCamp Boost or stuff like that. That's where it gets tricky, and so that company has been taking business and money away from other companies who are contributing back, who are part of the community. So that's the thing that we have to deal with, and that's what's really tricky in open source, because this is all allowed by the license, by the way. Like, there's nothing in the license that says you have to do one thing or another. It's more about like, hey, okay, if you play this out, like if WPEngine had all the WordPress customers in the world, right, and no other host had any customers, well, WordPress would be dead because they contribute nothing back. So
yeah, I get that. But
I have
then
a question about the license. So if 5 feature is voluntary and the license allows, anyone to basically do anything within the GPL, we do have an example of MongoDB not liking how AWS was poisoning the commons from their perspective, so they changed their license so that company like AWS can't just use MongoDB in that way. What's your thoughts about changing the license, to make it so that WPEngine has to give back or something like that?
I'm very opposed to that, because I believe, even more than in WordPress, I believe in the principles of open source, and that the true open source licenses give you, every individual listening to this, liberty and freedom, so that I can't take anything away from you. So that's the magic of the open source licenses. So I would never consider changing WordPress's license to something that try to prevent competitors or something like that. This isn't about what's legal. It's not about what's allowed. It's about what the incentives are, and if you allow this to continue, the social mores, like what happens. So the license says do whatever you want. And I think that's really important, and I will fight to my dying breath for that do whatever you want license, because that's freedom and liberty. But we have to look at the practicalities of how this plays out when a company is profiting so much off of the software and contributing nothing back. I mean, I want to correct myself. It's not nothing. It's 40 hours a week, contributing 40 hours a week back.
So when you say that lawyers are involved in the situation, is that just with the trademark, or is it about how they're giving back to the WordPress community?
There have been cease and desist letters filed by both sides, I can say.
Okay. Who else has got questions for Matt? Because I think it's important that we get a good perspective of why Matt feels that so very strongly about this.
And obviously, some of this stuff I can talk about more freely and such. So I'll try to navigate.
I do have a question. I'm confused about how the brand recognition. You said it's confusing. People are confusing it with WordPress. I know that WP isn't covered by the trademark. So in other ways that you could speak of, how is WPEngine confusing customers?
Yeah, so in trademark law, they usually have a threshold of about 15% of consumers being confused by something is a threshold for action. We've done some surveys and other things that show a multiple of that being confused by WPEngine being an official WordPress thing. They call it WordPress.
Can you be very specific on when you say we? Who has done that?
Automatic has done a commissioned a third-party survey with lawyers and everything. So they'll do their own surveys, that's part of the legal battle, but it's yes, it's not everyone. It's not 100%, but it's the threshold is 15% confusion for trademark.
I mean, I think in the community, one of the things that's frustrating us, Matt, is that you use the keynote to do this, to call them out. Plenty of other opportunities would have been around that. We're already a fragmented community. We're already having issues over the past few years, trying to grow WordPress just with new professionals, just trying to get them attracted to it at all. And now this is literally, has to be the dozenth time I've seen you do something like this where it just fragments the community again. And I understand your concern.
I haven't done this dozens of times. This is the only time I've done something like this. Like I said, watch my other 61 WordCamp presentations. Normally, they're very, very mild and everything. And like I said, I did not want to give that presentation. I was really hoping, and I was, calling people before I got on stage, like, please, let's resolve this amicably. Let's figure out a way where you can contribute back, back into the core.
So you had two speeches ready to go.
Yes, I had a different set of slides, and it was just done Q&A.
I'm presuming written by Chloe and Dan and others that usually help out.
No, I was just going to do Q&A. So, which was actually, if you look on the schedule, what it was supposed to be. It was supposed to be a town hall.
Can I ask?
I have a couple questions I'd like to be able to ask that are related. Hey, Matt. So in the engagements that we've had since the talk, I have been mentioning contributor dashboards, and I shared that with you. When I, as a team rep, have looked over the pledges of who's contributing what to what teams and signed up, long has that been historically a problem. As a team rep, I don't know where these people are in the training team. They're not on they pledged, whether they're Five for the Future people or just I signed up to do a thing on their profiles. It's numbers that can be gained, which is why increasing our contribution strategy, I feel, is really good. I've asked you publicly a while ago about bringing some transparency to areas like the hosting page. And usually the way in which I bring it about, I try to stay respectful. And also I try to bring some clarity to these are very subjective parts of how we do things. And I guess my concerns are that it feels to Five for the Future organizations and just individuals that the targets are moving because things are not particularly documented that we understand what's going on. And that kind of feels like the throwback to some of the governance discussions that we've had in the past. So being really clear about this is what this means, this is how we do this, while also allowing some of the flexibility that some of the earlier quotes about Five for the Future, years ago, this is aspirational mean. I think areas that are subjective to assess are things that would be most helpful to for the project to just document. I don't know if there's any reasons that we haven't in the past, if how we can make it not feel like a moving target.
No, you bring up some really valid points. So thank you. So there's so many ways to contribute to WordPress, and be involved. And I would love for those to be reflected on sort of publicly. We're all about transparency and openness. And so let's highlight, things. I think the difference that's a crucial thing to keep in mind is are you doing something that benefits you commercially? Okay, yes, you're releasing a plugin, but then people just buy your plugin? Or are you doing something that belongs to the commons? Does it belong to everyone? Does everyone have equal ownership of it? And so, but as long as we have that distinction between things that are in the commons versus not, I think that we can expand Five for the Future quite a bit to represent, the huge breadth of what people contribute to WordPress. And I would love to highlight that and have that on everyone's profiles and badges and everything. We want to celebrate that stuff. That's what makes WordPress hum. It's what makes the community alive. Is all of the work we all do, that's not just for us. It's for something bigger than ourselves. It's for something that belongs to all of us. not just accruing the benefits to one company.
I think, to say it's just one company just doesn't make much sense. And WPEngine, I'll tell you right now, like, I'm not a fan of them at all. I like the people. I don't like the service. I know that, there's better hosts that I choose to use. But the reality to say that they don't give anything back just seems very obtuse because, for instance, every professional I know uses or has used advanced custom fields for the work that they do. So, things like that. Local WP is huge. And I know you've made a play to kind of replace that with your own local dev system. Migrate DB Pro.
I want to be very clear. I've never said WPEngine never gives anything back. What I have said is that in contributions that are recognized by Five for the Future, they are currently represented, self-reported as 40 hours per week, down from 47 when I wrote the blog post. So apparently one of their employees said, like, hey, I'm not actually working on WordPress that much. At 40 hours per week of contributions. And I'm trying to highlight that in context of their $500 million a year in revenue. 40 hours per week, call that one person's salary, $100,000, I'm just trying to put these in context and scale for people.
Sounds good.
Andrew, I think you want to speak. Andrew Hoyer.
Yeah, hi. Hey, Matt. Thanks for joining this space. Appreciate it. My question to you is, what I'm wondering is, should companies like large companies, should we maybe expect them to get involved in the open source, the contribution part of it, or what would it be as good or potentially better for them to sponsor people who are already doing particular things? They're already full-time contributors or whatever. Yeah. Is that something that would be actually better than saying, well, why don't you do it yourself? And they could contribute that way.
Well, what's beautiful about contributions is everyone knows their own way which they can contribute. And maybe it's, making our badges better at the next WordCamp. Maybe it's code. Maybe it's translations. Maybe it's, everyone has their own unique talent and way they can sort of make things a little bit better in the community. What Five for the Future does is says, individuals who are doing something for the commons can then sort of say, hey, I'm doing this as part of an organization that supports this and that believes in the long-term future of WordPress. And so they are actually like supporting me doing this. And that's all it is. That's why it's like it's tied to individual profiles. So the Five for the Future page for WPEngine is a collection of the individual profiles of people. The 40 hours is like individual people aggregated up, saying how much they are able to contribute back, sponsored by WPEngine.
Jonathan Jernigan, you wrote just such a great blog post, so much better than mine, damn you. But you're a speaker. What do you got to say?
Thanks for having me. Matt, I have a question with kind of a follow-up on the back of it. So first of all, are you surprised by the level of backlash that has kind of exploded through the community after this? And then do you wish that you would have taken this kind of time, energy, and just immense amounts of money that are about to be sucked up in this legal battle, really on both sides, and maybe instead directed that to something that would directly benefit the millions of daily WordPress users, as opposed to pouring it into the hands of attorneys? Because I just feel like surely there was a route that you could have taken that wouldn't have resulted in the outcome we're now all facing, which I feel is probably going to end up resulting in kind of a net negative for the community. Like there's going to be bad blood, all the way around. I feel like
we're going to come out of this way stronger. So yes,
but if
do I want to avoid legal battles? Of course, legal stuff is terrible. All my devices are going to be discovered and all my text and everything will be looked at and everything. So like, yes, I want to stay out of that. Of course, everyone does. But, at some point when things are wrong in the world, you have to make a choice. You either stand by, as I have now for many years, being strung along by Silver Lake, saying they were going to do the right thing, or you decide to make a stand. And I did not want to do this. I really tried to have every exit, every out, every way to de-escalate for this. But
I think part of the issue for me is that you're a person that has immense reach and influence, and you have the ability to drive WordPress and Gutenberg and all these things forward in a very significant way. And now your time and all of your energy is going to be just heavily soaked up by this. So we have kind of the figurehead of WordPress wrapped up in a legal battle that, who knows, could take years by this point. So I find it personally a little disappointing that it's come to this place, because like I already said, you have the ability to try to drive positive change in a grassroots way. I think if it came from the ground up, with your influence. I said at the end of my
well don't worry, I'm still working on new features. I'm still
yeah, and I mean, I don't doubt that for sure.
WordPress will be really cool. We've got some fun stuff launching. Like there's luckily I'm able to do multiple things at a time. I've got like 40 direct reports. I have an amazing company at Automatic with over 1,900 people. I work with thousands of amazing contributors across WordPress. Like I'm able to chew gum and walk at the same time. So this will, I don't want to do this. It will be a distraction, but in the meantime, WordPress will continue shipping, getting better, everything every single day, like just the way we always have.
I want to open it up. So if you want to speak, put your hand up, and we'll, both Tia and I will keep an eye on that. So Sheldon, you're next in line. Open it up.
I was just wondering how long this has gone on. Like WPEngine's been around for, a long time, as long as I can remember. So why now? Like, is it because of a change in ownership at WPEngine where they changed their contribution amount? Like, what happened?
Let me think what I can say here. So publicly, you can all see that Automatic was actually an investor in WPEngine when they started. We were exited when Silver Lake, the private equity firm, $102 billion under management, bought WPEngine in 2018. I think you could look to that time as when things started to change, and discussions with the parties involved, including Lee Whitlinger and Heather Brunner, have been happening since then.
Wow, thanks. Yeah, that's exactly what I was wondering. Thank you.
So Andrew, you were next in line, and then it's going to be Easy Smith.
I asked my question. I move on to the next one already.
Oh, okay.
I'm good. I'm good.
By the way, the other company we've had some issues with in the WordPress community was GoDaddy. Lee Whitlinger, also on the board of GoDaddy when all this was happening. I just didn't want to complicate the argument for my speech, but like, this is why I tried to make it about Silver Lake and about him, is like the behavior they're doing. It spans multiple companies. It spans everything. It's about exploiting open source. It's about taking everything that they can and not giving anything back.
Okay, Easy Smith. Dan, is it? Go for
Dan,
it.
Yeah. I mean, it just sounds like this could have been done as your own lawsuits, whatever you want to do, back channel, go in that direction rather than using a public forum like like you did. It's just unfortunate because it's, as we try to get people into the community, like I'm literally trying to get younger developers interested in what we're doing, and especially ones that know React or coming over from Svelte. And for them to see this stuff happening, it's like, well, like that's just our leader who's...
I totally agree that this is not like relevant to like most people think about using WordPress. And yeah, totally. They don't need to know about this. It's just say maybe don't, maybe consider WPEngine's actions.
Well,
You're
I mean,
considering them as a customer.
they
So
do know about it because they follow people, on social media who are also in WordPress. And if this is what we're talking about, and we're all kind of like, well, WTF, what's
we're
going
talking
on?
about this because this is inside baseball.
So-
This is our community drama, and yes, I agree.
Okay, but you put it on TechCrunch. Like it is out
I
there.
didn't put it on TechCrunch. This is an interesting story. I'm sure many journalists will cover it. I've had people sharing information to me from inside WPEngine about some of their actions, which is part of why all this happened. I'm sure that those people have been in touch with journalists as well. I'm sure there will be many more stories about this. So that's why I offered, if, for these very, very brave people who actually believe in what's right, who pointed out their own employer was not doing the right thing, if they get in trouble, like, I got you. I don't want to do anything to de-anonymize them or anything like that. But if you get fired, if anything happens to you, I got your back.
Sure. All due respect, though, I mean, I'm sure many of us know folks from Automatic who have told us stories too of things that why they departed or whatever. So it just depends on, who's talking.
I'm sure there's unhappy people who don't like me or Automatic or anything like that, but I would happily hold any of our behaviors, like things we have actually done, up to public scrutiny. And you should hold me to a very, very high standard, and please continue to do so. So that is totally okay.
Okay, let's open it up. Josh, you've been waiting for a while. We also need a couple of people to demote themselves because we've run out of speaker things. So if you've had your say, please stay and listen, obviously, because it's very important that everybody takes part. But also, Josh, you've been waiting a while. Off you go.
Hey, Matt. I think you missed the opportunity to mention GoDaddy because a lot of us did know that was Silver Lake. And so that's why it felt like WPEngine was being singled out. I know you can't really comment on it, but just that was a quick thought.
Yeah, I just don't want to complicate things. It's like, okay, now and actually GoDaddy's done some really awesome stuff. Silver Lake is less in control of GoDaddy. So Silver Lake 100% owns and controls WPEngine. They do not 100% own and control GoDaddy. And I think GoDaddy has done some really good stuff in the community as well. And so I didn't want them to be included with this. But I will say that Lee Wintlinger was on the board of GoDaddy. That is one thing I will say. And that might coincide with some of the times that we had some troubles with them.
Okay, so Earl Davey, you wanted to speak.
GoDaddy is a public company. They have many owners. They have their own control. They have they're much more independent. WPEngine is completely controlled by Silver Lake. GoDaddy is a public company. They have their own agency and everything, so they have a lot more flexibility here.
Cool. Awesome. Okay, so if I can ask Earl Davey, because you've been waiting a while, and then I'm going to ask for Sheldon. I know that you've had a word, so you're back of the queue at the minute. Mark is going to be after Sheldon. Thanks.
Sounds great. Thank you. And Matt, I just want to say, while I disagree with a lot of what you said, I really respect you sort of standing up and coming to this and at least speaking back to people. So thank you very much for this.
I appreciate that.
I was curious, you said, Automatic commissioned a sort of survey of brand confusion. I'm curious, a two-parter. Number one, have you and/or Automatic commissioned the same for WordPress.com versus org? And if you have not, would you be willing to commission one of those and share the results openly? Because as you are well aware, there's a lot of people in the community that say, well, you're doing the exact same thing. And I understand totally that you have the trademark, that it's totally legal for you to do it. So putting all of that aside, have you commissioned it? What were the results? And if not, will you commit to doing so?
So yes, WordPress.org versus .com is confusing, but Automatic has a legal license to use the commercial trademark. So
totally agree.
it has a legal license, and also
not a debate,
Automatic contributes, 3,900 plus hours per week. So Automatic is giving back thousands of hours per week, the equivalent of about 100 people full time into the commons, into things that could be counted as not just benefiting Automatic, things that benefit everyone, every host, everyone in the WordPress community. So it's not an apples to apples. So yes, I agree that's confusing. And if you want to do a survey, yes, I'm sure we could find that, like .org versus .com. And by the way, I'm trying to fix that as well. I'm trying to make it like a easier path. .com is WordPress multi-site. If y'all don't know multi-site, it's a core feature that allows you to run many WordPress instances on a single install, and it doesn't allow plugins or themes. So that's what WordPress.com's lower price plans is, WordPress multi-site. The higher price plans, we sort of can isolate the code and allow you to do arbitrary plugins and themes, and that becomes sort of what we call WordPress, not WordPress multi-site. And yes, that is, I agree, that's all maybe not the best naming. So sorry, but that's all open and core software. That is not any modification of how things work. That is exactly how the software is designed to work, multi-site and WordPress.
Okay, before Mark, actually, I just wonder if, Matt, if you can clarify the foundation and its role within the trademarking, if you're happy to.
Sure. So there is a WordPress Foundation, which controls the trademark. It has 3 board members. I am one of them, so I do not control the foundation. I have a license to operate WordPress.org. So WordPress.org is just me personally, for the benefit of the WordPress community. So I have a trademark license for WordPress.org, and Automatic has a commercial license to do WordPress.com, and Automatic can sub-license WordPress to other companies. That's how everything's set up legally. And part of the reason for that is I wanted to create a structure that if at the time when this happened, I was not in control of Automatic. So if Automatic got bought or something like that, I wanted to make sure that we had sort of this kind of tripartite structure that had checks and balances, so that so in this, by the way, in the structure, either Automatic or myself could lose the trademark license if we were seen by the board, which I do not control, to be a bad steward of the WordPress trademark.
Great, that's clarity. Mark, go for it.
Hey, Matt, appreciate you being here. Thank you for taking the time. Good to meet you at WordCamp there last week. I think, so I've been, maybe some of the people know, I've been kind of learning in public, so to speak, from the OGs of the WordPress community over the past year. And I think one thing, related to this that's kind of, that I definitely would love some clarity on is how you personally, and there's something like literature and stuff like that around for Five for the Future and stuff like that, but how do you personally weigh and define the term contribution? Because I've gotten many different definitions of that. You have to be specifically contributing in a GitHub repository and creating code. You could be doing a ton of other things, obviously, that are helping the project move forward. But do you if that's one category of contribution, let's just say, or one way to define it, how do you weigh donations and then also for-profit endeavors that also move the project forward? Are those all equal to you, or is there a way to kind of convert them all to be on a level playing field, or is the top tier of contribution mainly the only way? If you go look at Five for the Future, is the only way to be actually in either documentation or in GitHub or developing stuff? I hope that kind of makes sense. Because I feel like there's to me, the word contribution can mean more than one thing, but maybe it doesn't. So I would just love your personal opinion on that.
I think there's 3 parts of this. So there's what is contribution, there's what's legible and transparent to the community, and there's what we call sponsorship, but really just benefits an organization. So first, what is contribution? Oh my goodness, I want the broadest definition of that as possible, because when you tell your friend, like, please use WordPress or help them, or like wear a WordPress hoodie, that's contributing. That counts. You are part of the WordPress community. You are making WordPress better. And that is amazing. And I am so grateful. And that should be like highlighted and thanked. And like, I've heard so many stories. I mean, that's the most beautiful thing about WordCamps is like you hear all these stories about like just people helping other people. I love that we have this kind of like community that we're like, hey, like, let's just try to help each other and make the world a better place. Like that is, all of that is contributing. So I would say I have the broadest possible definition of contributions, and I am super grateful for everything. The second part is what is legible, what is kind of like trackable and transparent on WordPress.org. And yes, you're right. That is things that might show up as actions like commits or translations or actions, sort of things like it's hard for us to track if you told your buddy to use WordPress, but it's very easy to see if you made a commit to the code, right? So I would say that on 5 for the Future, we try to highlight the things which are legible and visible, but of course, acknowledging that doesn't represent everything that people do to contribute to WordPress. And finally, you have like these sponsorships, boost sponsorships and things, so yes, or making plugins or stuff like that. Like that is being, I say that's being part of the community, that's being part of the ecosystem. I don't know if I would call it a contribution to the commons. It is contributing to WordPress's ecosystem, like as in you're part of it, like you are, on the operating system that is WordPress. But if you make a plugin and sell it, like, yes, you're benefiting from WordPress, and consumers might find that useful, and so they might use WordPress because of your plugin. But I don't know if I would call that a contribution to the commons, which is what we're trying to track in 5 for the Future. So, yeah.
Gotcha. Can I just add one more quick thing then, just as a quick example? So if you had, like, again, making up a number here, if you had like 40 hours of work per week, like a sponsored contributor, so to speak, right? A company wants to sponsor an employee for 40 hours a week. Let's just make up a number and say that employee makes $150,000 a year, and that would be like their salary. So if they were sponsoring for a full year, 40 hours a week, it would be equivalent to that in actual compensation. So in your mind, if you went over that time horizon of a year, and in one reality, they're 40 hours a week to the project, and the other reality, that company just gives $150,000 directly to, I guess, the WordPress Foundation. In your mind, are those equivalent, or are they not equivalent?
They could be. And by the way, the WordPress Foundation only had like $23,000 in donations last year. You can see this is all public. And by the way, WPEngine has never contributed, as far as I can tell, a single dollar to the foundation. So where many other people have, you can see them on the donors page. So yeah, I mean, these are all proxies, and that's why 5 for the Future is self-reported. It's like we can't audit this. It's like, I think that's not a fun path to go down. It's more about the spirit, like, the spirit of giving back. And the 5%, maybe it's 1%, maybe it's 0.5%. It doesn't matter. It's just kind of this idea that, like, hey, whatever I'm doing, if I'm benefiting from a thing that belongs to the commons, I'm going to take something and try to put it back. And it's up to every single person to decide what's right for them. Maybe 5% is too much because you've got a lot of stuff going on. That's fine. It's not meant to be like, any contribution is valuable. So I really want to make that clear. But the point of 5 for the Future is that if everyone who is benefiting from WordPress put about 5% back in, we would be doing amazing. If you average it out, I think that right now we get some companies doing a lot, some companies doing very little. So we probably get like 0.5%, 1% going back in. But look at what we've created with that. So 5 for the Future is aspirational for sure. But anything would help. Every little bit helps.
Brilliant. So Tia is next up to speak. She's put her hand up, and Jeff is after Tia. So let's keep it running. It's great that we're all here and up and being able to ask Matt some questions. Let's try and keep the questions brief.
Hi, Matt. So, what would be the ideal outcome with WPEngine that might set precedents for other companies like WPEngine?
Oh, I think I don't want to comment on a specific case, um, obviously, but I would say an uh, ideal outcome is just a flourishing community where we all get better software to use that enables, democratizes publishing, makes more of the web open source. Like that's the ideal outcome. The threats to that are actors that come in who might uh, sort of take what we produce, take WordPress, and sort of take profits and revenue away from companies that do give back and don't contribute anything. So that is what the danger is. I know that's very abstract, but you kind of have to think
Right.
about this in like macroeconomic terms.
So, if they were to contribute more hours to the core project itself, maybe triple, double, whatever, would that be something that you would say is an improvement?
That's up to them to decide, So, half a billion in revenue. So 5% of that is what, 25 million per year. Slice that up. Maybe it's people. Maybe it's a trademark agreement. Maybe it's, paying for things that go into the commons. Maybe it's sponsoring contributors. Maybe it's paying existing contributors. I don't know. Like that's up to them. But it's something. And right now it's 40 hours per week. So
And you've talking about this privately with them in the past, correct? And nothing
trust me,
came
I
of
did
it.
not wake up on the right side of the bed that morning.
Okay.
These discussions have been going back many, many years.
Got it. Okay, Jeff is up. I actually replaced him as co-host. So thank you, Jeff. Give us your viewpoint in protecting your status as well. So there you go.
Hey Matt, how you doing? I wish we were talking under better terms. That was quite the keynote you gave at WordCamp US. Within the last hour, WPEngine has published their cease and desist, which outlines a bunch of deep details, but we don't need to go over here. So, just in case we don't hear from you after this is over, you've probably ceased and desist. I'm not sure, but in this battle, is it between you and WPEngine? Is it between you and Silver Lake? Is it between you and Lee? And how far are you willing to go with this battle that everybody is going to be witness to in the court of public opinion?
How to answer that? WordPress is really my life's work, and open source is the thing I want. I feel like that's my legacy. I don't have any kids or anything. That's what I want to leave to the world. That's why I want to give to humanity. So threats of that to me are very, very serious. I'm a very, calm, cool, collected person. I only get worked up when there's threats to this thing that I love, which is, this flourishing open source community. And so, I'm sorry I can't address everything you said more directly, but I hope that answers some of it.
Thanks, Jeff. Matt, just one question, because you've answered my extensively on the trademark. What does a trademark agreement mean? So if I came to you and I said, I want to use the trademark, what does that actually mean in real terms to me as a WordPresser?
Could you be more specific?
Okay, I'm a big host, and I want to be able to be comfortable in the knowledge that I'm using the trademark in the right way. So therefore, I've come to you and I ask you for a license. What's my obligation under that? Because you mentioned the fact that you give out trademark licenses. How do I get one?
Oh, let me try to make an analogy here. So,
okay, and also,
I'll make an analogy. So,
okay,
let's say I'm running a restaurant, right?
Yeah.
And I serve Coca-Cola. I can say, come to Matt's restaurant. We serve Coca-Cola. I can't call my restaurant Coca-Cola Restaurant, right? That belongs to a company, Coca-Cola. So that's a good way to think about very, very abstractly, like trademark 101.
Okay, so that's okay. That was not the answer I required or expected.
But that is how trademarks work. So you can.
Well, no, you said you give.
Yes,
you
do we
do give
offer WordPress?
trademarks.
Of course.
Yeah. So what does that cost me anything?
That it's WordPress hosting? Are you implying? Are you confusing people to make it think it's actually like WordPress? It's from WordPress.
Okay.
There's some percentage of the community think that like it's WordPress engine, and this is an official thing, and like when they give their dollars to it, that it's actually supporting the software. Yeah, that gets a little trickier.
Okay, so in a licensing agreement, just to clear up any kind of confusion, if I were to be given a license for using the WordPress mark or anything like that, I would expect to pay for it like a franchise or whatever, like a BMW dealership, for instance. They have a license to use the BMW logo and say they're a BMW dealership. Who would that money go to? Would that go to the foundation? Because the foundation are in control of the trademarking?
Yeah, so a trademark agreement doesn't have to be financial.
Oh, okay. That's the answer I wanted. There you go.
Yeah, a trademark agreement could be an agreement to do something. It could be financial. It could be use, how you can use it. So, like, for example, one thing that I'm hoping to open up with our trademark a bit more is I want to say, because right now, like, our mercantile store, the swag, is like not very good. And so what I actually like to open up is say like, hey, this is not official, but this is kind of the idea. If you want to make something with the WordPress logo on it and sell it, that's totally fine. If any profits go back to the foundation. So that would then just say anyone who wants in the world with any printer, with any sticker, with any hat, with anything could put the WordPress logo on something and sell it if they put the profits back to the foundation. So there's commercial and non-commercial use. So non-commercial use of the trademark is goes through the foundation, and commercial use of the WordPress trademark goes through Automatic.
Brilliant. Right. So the next speaker is it's Iceberg. So I don't know. Please use your real names. I'm a simple person, but Iceberg, ask your question if appropriate. Thank you.
No, I was just impressed by the open source thought of Matt, and I just saw that you guys had a space on Twitter, so I usually go to a Web3 spaces, and when it comes to having fully custodial of your data and your assets, and so it's very important what Matt was talking about, having open source and you can code on top of that kind of software, and that's very interesting for me. That's what I wanted to say to Matt.
Perfect. And
Thank you so much for listening.
We're all in agreement with that. We've got some high hitters here. We've got Tom Wilmot in there. Tom, if you want to ask a question, feel free. And I think the next in line that we've got is Dan, and then Andrew, and then Jonathan. So, fill your boots, guys, and I'll try and keep control of this thing.
Yeah, I was just the Coca-Cola analogy you said, obviously, I mean, to all of us, it does not make sense. I would love if you shared that data that you guys collected so the community could see. The only folks saying that their Coca-Cola is .com. So that's the reality. And I even, I shared with you an example.
Has a license to do that. So .com has a commercial license.
And that's terrific. So. That's great because you have first mover advantage. I totally get it. It's your thing. Automatic's your company. It's your open source from the beginning. You dictate, what happens in core.
Actually, Automatic had exclusive ownership of the trademark. And,
it's your company.
I was very young at the time. And the company I did not control the board or the investors or the votes or anything at that time. I was in my 20s, and I was, I guess, 19 when we first started. So the trademark was owned by a for-profit. I was able to extract the trademark from the for-profit and put it into a nonprofit to allow for broad use for WordPress.org, for all the things I just talked about. But Automatic retained that commercial exclusivity.
I mean, for those of us that were around, we remember that period of time. I remember people were kind of in a kerfuffle that you had done that and took it upon yourself to do that at the time. It's neither here nor there.
If you can imagine how hard it is for a 20-something-year-old to tell investors who've given them tens of millions of dollars to take the most valuable asset the company has and transfer it into a nonprofit, it was very, very tricky, but I was able to navigate it. And I think the WordPress community has flourished as a result. Other communities have different setups. I think the Drupal trademark belongs to Dries personally. There's and other communities as well don't allow some broader use or they've had forks or other things. So
Sure.
I think we found a really good balance in WordPress that's allowed incredible ecosystem, incredible businesses, and the success. I mean, we're 10 times bigger than the number 2 in the market, which is Shopify. We grew an entire Drupal last year in terms of market share.
That's what I was going to say. Drupal's dying, and we grow because of literally third-party entities like Elementor. Now, Bricks Builders bringing more people in. I mean, let's be reasonable here, kind of on how that growth has been happening as well. My concern just becomes, and by the way, you saying that you want to allow for the logo to be used to give back to the foundation. I love that. I will personally do that. So totally cool, and kudos if you can push that through. But again, it's just, back to the .com. This sounds like a personal vendetta that you had with Silver Lake and Lee. And again, my concern is just that it's going to be a scorched earth scenario, and we're seeing it already. That's what's happening. We're trying to make real money off of this, and continue our livelihoods on WordPress. So the concern ends up being that over and over and over again, these things pop up that we just don't need that drama.
I want you to know that I did everything in my power to avoid this. I completely agree with you. So
that just does not make sense. I've been through legal battles. I've actually, been through some things like that at startups I've been at, and it has never gotten anywhere but the back channel. And it's for some pretty big moves. So it's surprising to me to come out at an event like that, really scorched earth, and then to see that, you're just doubling down on it. So
yeah, and I will say that this is, WPEngine is a $500 million a year company owned by a private equity firm.
Keep mentioning the numbers
under management. So this is
big
leagues. It's not startup.
I get it.
Small legal battles. This has been developing over many, 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 many years. So,
but it sounds like even if they give the hours to it, what you're really looking for is money. And my concern is it the money because Automatic isn't making enough, or what's really going on behind closed doors? Because this came out of nowhere.
I completely disagree with you.
No, I'm just asking.
Well, that's not what I said. You're saying something I didn't say. I said if they want to give money to Automatic and then Automatic pays developers, great. If they want to pay developers themselves, great. But they need to put something back into the
cool.
It's up to them how to do it, but they need to do something.
Cool. So if they give back the hours, sounds good.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. I'll buy out, Andrew.
Okay, we've got, let's try and not speak over people when they're speaking. It's very difficult in a Spaces situation. It's not a Zoom. We can't see people. We can't see what they're doing at. And I get it. And the reasoning that I've got behind this, so many podcasts out there, many speakers speak over each other, and you're not getting the messaging across. I happen to disagree with what Matt did on Friday. So I'm not a Matt apologist, and Matt knows that. He's gone through my blog post. I'm certainly not an apologist, but I do want him to have time and clearance to answer any relevant questions that are there. And I really appreciate everybody here, as does Tia, do that. But we must give each speaker time to speak if we can. So the next guy up is Andrew. He's been waiting for a while, and then it's going to be Jonathan.
Hey, Matt. For those who might want a little bit of light bedtime reading tonight, what's the best place to read the cease and desist order and so on? Is there a place where we can actually see that, read it?
Matt, can I rudely interrupt you after what I've just said? I've got a copy of it on my desktop, so if you want it, I'll post it somewhere privately.
Yeah. So what is public and what's shared is kind of now all legal strategy. So they're going to try to leak some things that make me look bad or make Automatic looks bad. I'm really fine with everything being transparent, and our legal side will decide what's best to share. So that, but I would say everything I've said publicly, my blog post puts a lot of stuff out there, and I'm referring to all things that are easily verifiable in the public. You can see exactly, you can all see Verify for the Future page. You can see who the contributors are and exactly how many hours there are. You can look at the commits. You can look at the Slack messages. You could look at everything. So all of that's out there. So they're going to try to, by the way, for what's next, this $102 billion equity firm is going to try to smear me. They're going to try to make me look evil. They're going to try to say I'm doing this just for money. Like I even care about money at this point. Like that's, so there's going to be a lot of nasty attacks. So expect that there'll be Oppo research on me. They'll try to dig into my personal life. They'll try to find things. They'll find ex-employees or something, or ex-partners to say I was a bad partner or something like that. They'll look for everything. So just look for lots of smear campaigns against me. That's what's going to happen.
Okay, Jonathan, you're up. Then Sheldon.
I wanted to avoid this, by the way. That's going to be miserable, but it's this is what's right. It's what's important for our community, and if Silver Lake's behavior continues unchecked, I think it would literally. I mean, we'd end up where Joomla and Drupal are, like totally hollowed out, being completely outcompeted by the proprietary alternatives.
Hey, Matt, with regard to my article I posted, which was essentially. I just argued that WordCamp was the wrong venue to air this in. I was curious because I believe it's impossible to quantify the immense financial and just positive social value that comes out of a WordCamp. What does it actually cost to run a flagship WordCamp like US, and how much of that cost is covered by the sponsors? And then also, two of the top tier sponsors were Automatic owned properties, and I assume money does change hands. So just how much does it cost to run? Do the sponsors pay that bill? And then, did money change hands for the Automatic owned properties that, that sponsored WordCamp US, for example?
Sure. And I think most of this is publicly reported, like the budgets and everything. So I'm just going to make up some numbers, but go look up the actual ones. But I
tried, but I struggled to find it. So maybe somebody can point me in the right direction later.
Maybe someone on the organizing team can share. But roughly, let's talk about events and conferences, right? Like most tech events cost hundreds and hundreds or thousands of dollars to attend, right? WordCamp started, actually, the first one was completely free. And that I hosted in San Francisco. But then we had bought too many t-shirts and barbecue. So because a lot of people didn't show up because they didn't pay for a ticket. So they just signed up for a ticket. So I was like, okay, we got to charge something. And so we started charging $25. I think WordCamp US was, I want to say $100 ticket. And that got you 3 to 4 days of conference, food every day, after parties, plus all the swag and everything that the vendors bring. So why is the ticket so cheap? Well, two reasons. One, we want to bring in lots of local community. So anyone who's attended WordCamp knows that you're actually spending thousands of dollars to go. The ticket price is not the big thing. You're going to spend a lot on the flights and the hotels and everything like that. The same is true for the sponsors. So yes, the sponsor, I think the top tier sponsorship for WordCamp this year was $75K. Automatic had 2 of those. WPEngine had 1. I apologize. I don't remember all the sponsors, but I appreciate them all. And what you get is then access to all the attendees. So it's basically advertising. And I know for Automatic, yes, we paid $75K or $150K to sponsor, but then we spent, $500,000 or more flying people in, setting up the booth, doing the swag, all the sort of things. So and why do we do that? To get customers. So it's a marketing thing. Now that advertising subsidizes the tickets. So that's why the tickets are so cheap. And that's the business model. That's how it works.
Cool. Sheldon, off you go.
I was just wondering if like people are looking for an analogy on a few things, but like to me this kind of sounds like the conflict between Elastic and Redis and all those other companies that ended up changing their licenses to avoid like Amazon basically reselling their service and basically contributing nothing back. Is that a similar situation that is analogous to what's going on here?
Yeah, and to be honest, there's a lot of people that would love for, all the people at Automatic to not, like investors would love for Automatic not to be contributing so much back into open source. They're like, why are you making features for your competitors, et cetera, et cetera. But I want to avoid, I'm a big believer in open source. If you don't get it, I'm like a religious zealot for open source. So I want to avoid any license change, anything that's happened to these other communities. So I think it's good to look at those as like counterexamples of what happens when, well, I think Amazon could have behaved better there, right? They should have just given some back to the projects. It would have cost them very little. And I think the companies ultimately, maybe not being in control of the founder, maybe being controlled by an investors or a board, were forced to change their license. So that's usually what happens.
That's sort of the irony of the whole situation, is that like their response was to change their license. Like that was the thing they had control of. Your response was to write a blog post and call out a company, and now it's almost like you are getting you're getting a backlash that seems about as bad as if you would change the license. I can't imagine if you suggested, hey, we're going to change the license just so that places like WPEngine can't do what WPEngine does, and you're still getting a ton of backlash as if that's what you're doing, and you're not,
Honestly, the backlash hasn't been that bad. Honestly, I've been getting far more messages of support, and I feel like as people sort of understand the nuances and how this all works, they can kind of see, the kind of right and wrong in this situation. And so I've actually felt like the backlash hasn't been bad at all.
That's awesome to hear. I'm glad. I mean, you hear a little bit different on this call, and maybe probably if everybody were to vote, they would probably be like very much in favor of what you did, and kind of sad that did you know it was going to go to this situation where it would be a legal thing?
That's what I was trying to avoid, of course, as I said earlier.
But just by writing that blog post, by talking at that event, like, did you know that as soon as you did that, like, that's it, they're probably it's a legal thing now? Like, is that what happened?
As soon as my talk started, the lawyers on both sides, started making some money and writing some docs. So,
hey, some people know me on this call. It's Vinny Green. Matt, I've sent you a DM. I'd like to give you the opportunity to come talk to me on a call and get out of this Twitter space immediately, or I'll just talk to you openly here. But I'm gonna mute, and I would please invite you to get out of this channel and go in your DMs and call me and stop talking in this Twitter space. Sorry to shit on everybody's great time in here, but Matt, the smarter thing to do is to get out of this Twitter space and to open your DMs and call me. Stop.
I appreciate your concern. I do have to leave probably at 1/2 the hour because I've got some calls and things. But I do want to try to be transparent. I want to engage with the community. I've done some direct calls with different folks, including Andrew yesterday. So I took time over the weekend to talk to people. I'm trying to make a case, and I believe that we have the truth on our side. I'm also working with the top legal minds in the country, people who've argued in front of the Supreme Court. And so I feel very, very confident about our case and our position. So.
That's cool. And actually, I just want to remind everybody that Tia is started this Twitter space. So kudos to her. And also, if anyone wants to challenge Matt and ask him to leave the room, get lost. This is Matt's choice to be in this room. It's our choice to run this Twitter space. And we are open source. So if Matt feels that he's comfortable talking, even though there is a cease and desist letter, then Matt has as much right as any one of us in this room to speak about whatever he likes about open source, and that is fine by me. So I'd like to actually invite people that have spoken and commented to kind of leave the room on the basis of being a speaker. Just make yourself a non-speaker so that we can open up the room, because we're getting a lot of requests for other people to speak. And I know that Mihai and Nathan Ingram have joined. And Nathan, I'm going to invite you to speak because you've asked to be a speaker and you've obviously got a question. So go for it.
Thanks, Andrew. And first, Matt, thanks so much for doing this Spaces broadcast. You don't have to do this, and I appreciate it. And I just have one quick question for you. The most troubling part to me today of the litigation announcement is that WordPress.org was named as a defendant. I did join a few minutes late, and I hope this wasn't answered already, but will any funds from the WordPress Foundation be used to defend this lawsuit?
That's a good question. So WordPress.org is just me personally. So that's them coming after me. The WordPress Foundation I don't think was named as one of the folks. So, but all the foundation's finances are public, and again, it's controlled by the board. It's not controlled by me. So hopefully they leave it out. But yeah, and like I said, if the foundation needs more donations if that does get wrapped in, I'm happy to provide it. Yeah.
Thank you, Matt.
Actually, on the cease and desist letter, the main people that are mentioned are the board of Automatic and Matt himself. So there is a cease and desist letter out there. So Matt's got to be very careful about what he says. We ourselves as WordPress, as Matt said on Friday, that we own WordPress as much as he does, and I'm taking that as read. We have to protect WordPress as well. There's Mihai that's been waiting to speak, so go for it.
Yeah, don't worry about it.
Okay, if you don't want to speak.
I didn't get much of the discussion. I had in the very way back some very bad experiences with WPEngine, so I saw that, and yeah, I wanted to find out more.
I think it's a common case that all of us had problems with various hosts. I don't think that this is the forum that we want to criticize any particular host or any particular person. We want to talk about how we can make WordPress better, flourish, like Matt said. I've started funding.
Then I have a really good question.
Yeah,
I thought we're just focusing on that. What is your take right now on headless WordPress and this trend in many websites to kind of move away from monolith and be able to do very UIs in different frameworks?
Cool. I love WordPress questions. Yeah, I think it's sort of an architectural decision. So, depending on what sort of site or application you're designing, I like calling it decoupled approach. Could be right. And we obviously support several APIs in core, XMRPC, REST. There's a GraphQL plugin, etc. There's lots of plugins to do headless stuff. I think that it's not right most of the time, but there's probably 5% of cases where it really makes sense. And otherwise, I do think that the sort of simplicity, the performance, and also the access to sort of the 60,000 plugins and themes that you get from the kind of pure PHP approach is way better for 95% of websites. But there is still that 5%. So both are great, and WordPress.
Yeah, but here's the thing: performance-wise, it really can catch up with the others just by the fact that it's a monolith. So
no,
CSS is a huge blocker.
There are
for example, if you're not enabled to use Tailwind, which considerably reduces the amount of CSS you ship, then that's a huge blocker on first paint on absolutely everything. And is there a way to kind of go around that and implement something like Tailwind?
I think you're parroting the marketing from the sort of Jamstack coalition, which is a bunch of companies trying to sell you a bunch of different vendor solutions so you can pay 12 different people instead of just paying one.
I'm not paying anybody. Tailwind is open source and it's awesome.
It's more complex. So now there are monolith I can point you to monolith web pages with 100% performance score and great first time. So it's possible to do. But yeah, I think either approach is, from a performance point of view, either approach can work. So the reasons I would use headless are not for performance, not for security. I would use it more if there were some interactive aspect of the website. So for example, like a great use case could be like a podcast or a radio show. If you want to have like a player that was persistent from page to page, that could be a reason to use a more decoupled architecture.
Cool. Somebody asked for some stats from WordCamp US. Jeff Mankini at Jeff Mankini, which is JEFFMANKINI, has said you can reach out to him and he'll give you some stats if they're all available. So that's pretty cool. Anybody else want to have a question? Justin, you've just come into the room.
By the way, I just see that they published their C&D letter. So that's fantastic. So now you know that I'm saying the truth. When up until I was going on stage, I was trying to contact them, trying to de-escalate, being like, hey, is there anything we can do to avoid this? So
yeah, there's a cease and desist letter. It's out in the wild. I think Jason, the previous owner of WPEngine, tweeted it, and I've got the copy. I've actually messaged you within X or whatever we call it with the link, Matt. So at least you've got it. But I think that I want to, Justin, as you say, you were in there and outer space or whatever you are. You're next in line. Thanks.
Cool. Hey guys. So yeah, I'm Justin. I was one of the organizers for WordCamp US, and I specifically led the sponsor team. So I've been dealing with this a little bit the last few days. And first, just wanted to say, like on the one hand, Automatic does so much for WordCamps, for WordCamp US. Being behind the scenes, looking at the budget, like this WordCamp and a lot of WordCamps wouldn't happen without Automatic, right? So that is like 100%.
We're also happy to do more. So if WPEngine pulls out and no other host wants to take their place, I'm happy to, WordCamps will keep going. Don't worry.
100%, which we, are so thankful for, truly. But also, like, on the organizing end, as well as any organizer, that you spend months and months and months and months working. This last week, it was 18 hours a day, every day for us to make an awesome event. And it was 99.9% awesome. And then as soon as we got to the keynote, it was like, dear Lord, and I totally hear that you didn't want to go up there and didn't want it to end up the way it was going to be. And it just, from an organizer's perspective, it felt like just a punch to the gut for all the work that, at least that I put in. And I'm sure some other organizers too. But it felt like we tried to create something awesome, and it was mostly awesome until the end. And that just, that kind of sucked for us, to be totally honest. And I guess my question is, could you, if you knew that this was going to be an issue, and it, on Twitter and wherever, it sounds like, for the last 18 months, you've tried to resolve it in back channels. If it was going to be an issue, why let them sponsor in the first place? Like, just ban them, deal with the stuff, and let us have a good WordCamp.
My biggest regret is not doing all this sooner. So I agree with you there. But first, I just want to say it was an awesome WordCamp. And by the way, I know my talk was like awkward, but it's important. So, but I think it was amazing, and I just applaud you and the entire organizing team. You did amazing work. It was incredible, and I can't wait to go back to Portland next year. So yes, now all of this is, WPEngine is now, well, since they did the legal stuff, they're now like, banned from WordPress.org stuff. Like, it's all like, so that's done. So this won't be an issue in the future. But yeah, I'm sorry about this. I too wanted to avoid it, but don't let it mar the event. You did an awesome job, and everyone, I think, really enjoyed it.
I think, and yeah, I echo that, because even though I didn't attend, I attended online. But one of the things that I want you to do, Matt, is really do think about rebuilding bridges. We discussed this. No bridges totally burnt. You might be able to get around a table. You might be able to do a compromise. I think it would be best for the community. And people saying, where's the money going to come from? It doesn't matter. Where's the we've all got pride about what we're doing in our daily lives, and I know that you're proud of WordPress, and you rightly should be, but we need to fix this, and I prefer it not to go to court and cost WordPress.org lots of money, or WordPress Foundation lots of money.
Well,
On that,
and we're at time, so I do want to just end by saying, unfortunately, it is in the legal realm now, but WordCamps will be fine. The 5 or 6 million it does do WordCamps every year is such a small part of the probably 10 billion a year WordPress ecosystem that they're going to be just fine. So, and this course offer is still going. Most of all automatic contributors are still contributing. Like everything will keep going. There's just going to be this kind of company, this private equity firm that's going to be doing a big fight because they did a bunch of wrong stuff, and they're in the wrong, and they're going to try to make it really ugly on the way down. So.
Cool. Well, best of luck with that. Thanks for attending. And if you've got another moment, just maybe we need a contributor badge for WordCamp organizers and meetup organizers. I'm not even sure whether they exist, but if it doesn't exist, I think
it does.
They're massive contributors. It's a lot of hard work. I know a couple of organizers myself, and they said, "Would you like to help?" And I said, "I'm too old. It ain't going to happen. I'll run out of breath." So.
And also, I just want to say thank you, Andrew, thank you, Tia, thank you everyone for engaging and talking. Yes, lots of people agree with Vinny and say hey, don't talk, don't share, don't talk to the press, have it all go through lawyers, whatever. But I think the truth is on our side. I'm trying to engage. Even if you disagree with me, I really appreciate the conversation, because that's what community is about.
Cool. Thank you very much. Right.
How do we support you, Matt? That's my question. Sorry to jump in, but you're leaving, and we wanted to know that. For those of us that want to support you, what is the best way to do that?
Just speak your truth. Do what feels right for you. And like I said, as you consider where you spend your dollars in the WordPress community, try to spend them with folks that are part of the Five for the Future and giving back to the commons. So I would say that's the best way to do it. So it's a result of those 1,000 little decisions.
Brilliant. So Matt, thank you once. You're going, right? You've got to go. But we're going to continue the conversation if people want us to. If they don't, we'll have a show of hands and exit the room, and then we'll know. Because I've got plenty of time to continue with this. So let's open up the room again. John Brown, unfortunately, Matt's going to go away, but if you've got a question, ask it now.
Howdy, maybe Matt, if you haven't gone, just you probably remember I've been around since the thesis drama. Seen a lot of WP drama over the years, and just wanted to say to you, as someone who's been critical of you at times, thank you for throwing yourself in front of the freight train here. Watching this talk, it was cringy, but at the same time, it needed to happen. So appreciate what you're doing. As someone who's critical of you, hopefully that lands well. I've certainly seen the change at WPEngine since Silver Lake got involved. I've been a WP fanboy, like some of us, since they had 5 employees and were giving away free accounts at WordCamp San Francisco, 15 years ago, it feels like. But it's also hard because I don't think that we should have litmus tests for who can use WordPress and who should be allowed to participate in the community in what way. So I do recognize it's a very complicated issue. And the last thing was, it's got to be said, the foundation holds the license, and I think you did a brilliant thing moving the license from a for-profit company to the foundation. But at the same time, that license doesn't go to anybody but Automatic and .org. And I wonder if there's a way to actually license the trademark and whatnot to other entities that wanted it, in a way that benefited the project. Something like, you have to participate in Five for the Future in order to qualify for a license to use the trademark in some ways. Just thoughts there. Again, thank you for all you've done for the project for 20 years. Appreciate it.
Okay, well, Matt's left the room, unfortunately, John, but I do know that there are other companies out there, and I'm not going to tell you who they are. You can find out, but there are other companies out there that do Five for the Future in a big way, and they do have a license to use WordPress in the way that the foundation is happy with. So they, Automatic do have a license to actually sub-license that, because it's all part of the foundation rules and law, and it's built into the foundation of the foundation where trademarks are concerned. So other companies do actually have a license for that. So you can rest assured that people want to do that, then they obviously they contribute. But that, I don't think that is a criteria. But Matt was speaking earlier before you joined in about maybe commercializing it and allowing people to sell swag with stuff on, and any profits going back to the foundation. So there's some movement on that. And if anybody else wants to add to this great conversation, really appreciate how many people. I think we were 350 at one time. We're down to 207 at the moment, but some great contributions. And I know that Zach Katz is there. He asked a very good question and asked Matt about maybe he needs to issue a couple of apologies out there. That could be true. It's not nothing that I've got. We've got Donata, who's in here, that's a very good friend of mine and happens to be a lawyer. So if she wants to ask questions or comment on whatever's going on, then just apply to be a speaker. Mark's just come into the room, back into the room as well. So I'll leave it open. Whoever wants to speak.
I'd like to ask a question. I had my hand up, but I don't know if you could see it or not. Is it
Absolutely.
okay?
Yeah, carry on.
Sweet. Thanks, Andrew. Thanks for having me up. I know sometimes cartoon pictures are not as welcoming. My name's Eder Lumen, and yeah, when Matt was up here, I just wanted to thank him for the WordPress in general. It's definitely been life-changing, I think, for a lot of people that are listening and more people that are not listening here. And I commend him for being transparent. I think that that's so, so important. The follow-up that I had is, I noticed there's people that are probably way more devy than I am in terms of hosting and hosting providers. I've never used WPEngine myself, but I do recommend WordPress to a lot of folks, and I usually recommend hosting. And I'm wondering if, given this, it would be, is there a list somewhere? Is there an article? Is there a tweet where, because I use DigitalOcean, and now with ChatGPT, I became the backend dev that sets it all up and have my own droplets for WordPress stuff. But I'm just wondering, I would never recommend that to someone, even with ChatGPT, who has no idea what's happening. And so, what would we recommend to new people coming in that are making and using WordPress if WPEngine is a no-no? Is there a list somewhere, or is there that would be really helpful, at least for those of us that are siding with Matt in wanting to show support?
Well, I think that's an answer that I can answer because I host and manage 500 websites. I'm a small guy, I've got my own little agency as well. I use a variety of hosts. It really is a question of going out there and choosing for yourself. Matt obviously would like you to use the hosts that are on WordPress.org. Some of them, if you choose them, they do give back to WordPress.org as well. But a great idea is to go to the WP World, or so the WP.world, and on that site, which is moderated by a GoDaddy contributor as well. What guy works for GoDaddy, Marcus Burnett, the WP.world, and look at hosting. And they are, he's got a list of hosts, and the criteria for being listed there is user approval and Five for the Future. So any of those hosts that you choose on there, and WPEngine is actually on that page, will do you some good. So I would suggest go to the WP.world and choose from a list of hosts there. We've all got our favorites. Anyone? Mike Demo, Mike Demo is a friend of mine, by the way. So and a real community-spirited chap. Works for Codable, has got a lot to say, and he knows a lot. Been in the Joomla and the WordPress space for donkey's years, far too young to have been around for quite so long. But Mike, you got something to say?
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. So actually, I have a comment slash question. So for those of you who know me, I started in Mambo, then over to Joomla, and for a few years I was the treasurer of Joomla and also the lead of the capital team. And at the time, Joomla was the second largest CMS, with WordPress, of course, being number one. That's actually where I met Matt the first time, is when he spoke in Boston at the second Joomla World Conference. He was the keynote speaker. So my first kind of comment from the treasurer perspective and capital team is, I would like to see Five for the Future go beyond just core contributors and have ways so that, companies or individual freelancers, there is the donation page for the foundation, but you can look at the contributor list. It's not many people know about it. And the foundation also has different restrictions and, from a legal perspective. I think it would be good to have some sort of recommended model for hosts and companies on, if they can't donate time, to maybe donate cash, and then potentially the foundation or whatever entity, such as the Public Benefit Corporation, could then hire people to do the work that the project deems most valuable. I think giving more than just trying to time is going to be very useful, especially for people who feel overwhelmed by trying to contribute to core. And then secondarily, I am curious on who's covering the legal fees in regards to the trademarks and WordPress.org, which is that going to come out of the foundation or the Public Benefit Corporation? And I'm just kind of curious on how that's going to all shake out, because I remember at Joomla we had to pay when we had to do trademark protection cases, and it's not cheap. So those are my two comments.
Yeah, Matt did comment on that. So we've basically, if it will come out, the foundation aren't mentioned. So currently it's the cease and desist letter is aimed at Matt and the board of Automatic. So basically, and the cease and desist in a nutshell is basically shut up, stop slagging us off, stop talking about it. So any legal fees will probably come out of Automatic for the moment. And Matt did say quite explicitly that if WP.org or if the foundation got involved, he'd cover those costs himself anyway. So I think that's clear. This is not to promote me. This is Tia's thing, but if you go to somebody'shero.co.uk, find it, you'll find it somehow. I wrote a blog post. It's time to financially support the WordPress ecosystem. I introduced myself as writing that blog post. I did a WP London WordPress meetup, The Trouble with WordPress. I suggest that freelancers who build a website for a couple of grand or $1,000 or whatever can donate directly to the foundation, $20. I do it every time I build a website. So that's on me. That you're not obligated to do that at all. But that's one way that we can all give back. And if you think that there's 10,000 websites installed or WordPress websites installed every day, if just 2,000 people did that, that's 14 million a year if we did it every single day. So that's quite a lot of income for the foundation. The distribution for the money is done by, which was clarified with me and Matt having a chat yesterday, because I got it wrong, but the distribution of the money is done through the WordPress community support, and they dish out all the cash that foundation get. And also there is $600,000 going into WPCS via WP Beginner, GoDaddy, Automatic, and somebody else, can't remember, but anyway, there's 600 grand a year going in there, so that's quite a lot of money. But anyway, so we can all give back in our little ways. And I've got Courtney in here, and I think Courtney
might have some things to say there.
Matt's not in the room. I just want Courtney to have her word. Okay.
Thank you. It's quite related. I see Matt still as a listener. So Matt had said in 2022 that the WordPress Foundation has and will never fund contributors, in which out of that, I partnered with Say Reed to co-found the WP Community Collective. And the WP Community Collective, this is not to promote, like, one more thing I'm doing. It is solely that if I want to, for instance, at Contributor Day for WordCamp US, wanted to help financially support the people that were table leads. I organized, I was lead organizer of Contributor Day this year, which was an amazing, amazing opportunity. Wanted to financially support the people that were there, not because they were employed by anybody on the sponsors page. There's a lot of red tape that goes into stuffing money in envelopes to give to people, and a lot of procurement challenges when you start working at a company as big as I do. And not only that, but also the entire community wants ways to help fund contributors. In other open source projects, foundations are set up. For instance, GoDaddy funds OpenJS. We give money to that project. Out of that covers the cost of their executive director is paid by their foundation. People that are their equivalent of core contributors. And by that, I mean, in a lot of the other projects, you don't have quite as many teams as we do in WordPress, and they're really focused in on core. But in WordPress, we have all of these other teams, and I believe that contributors to all of these other teams, also rightly so, may need to be financially supported as well. And I have been that person until about 3.5 years ago, since 2009 in this project. So it matters deeply to me that we take care of those that are showing up to do the work of the project. So with what WPCC does, it's looking at the purview of the WordPress Foundation, both according to the foundation's website and things Matt has said on Twitter, is not going to, in the foreseeable future, be a repository for collecting funds for contributors. That's fine. However, to make that happen, WPCC was born out of that initiative. And I am open to discussing. I have had conversations. This is not a GoDaddy thing. This is a WordPress community initiative solely, WordPress Community Collective, or the WPCC. So out of that, I'm willing to hold these conversations, and I do with my peers in other organizations. What are the challenges that we're facing when we need to request? Right now it's budget planning season for a lot of companies, and we're heading into the next calendar year. What do we need to do? Why do we need to do it? How do we justify that against all of the other costs that are going on, and ensuring folks still have jobs and that we do this in a way that is appropriate? And there's a lot of big decisions that go into this. So I've talked with my peers in other organizations. I was having a great chat with a few of them during lunch, during some of the last couple of days at WordCamp US. I'm happy to hold those conversations with others, as well as help turn that into documentation in our Five for the Future program. I do hope to get some more clarity and talk things out further publicly with Matt when he is available around some of that. But the matching of the contributor dashboards, as well as how to help those that either contribution could look like many things. At GoDaddy, what we're doing, we have some folks like myself. There are full-time or close to full-time in contributing efforts. We've got several of those. We've got some people that just log tickets when they come across it in their daily work. We've got people that are contractors, like Joe Dolson, we sponsor to the accessibility team, and that is not a full-time role. He is not an employee. So there's a mixture of ways in which we go about contributing. It's hard to synthesize all of that together, and it's also a lot of strategy that goes into thinking through these. And so those are areas that I am specifically working on, both at my employer, but also inside the project. And right now I'm going to need some sleep after this week is done and the media cycle slows down. But I would be happy to facilitate some of those conversations so that collectively what we need from WordPress.org's Five for the Future listings becomes more clear, and also that we think about different ways to fund open source and we learn from how other open source projects have done so.
Cool. I was reminded by Say Reed the other day about reminded, I must have known about it because I know everything, but I don't. So if you can private message me a link on that, we can put that on the fundwp.com site, because we want to be agnostic about how we talk to people about funding different contributors. I would love to see the foundation somehow pay contributors. All of my speaking, all of my thoughts around the community are people should be paid. There are some very eloquent speakers, intelligent speakers that can't go to these big word camps. They just can't afford it. And I want to see, rather than having the begging bowl out, I want to see a facility to say, okay, this is how you apply, this is what you're doing, or this is what we're doing. And so, I'm happy to put any links that I've got and promote anything that you believe in, Courtney, because you and I have met in real life, which is great. And I hope your chest is better. But the thing is that we've just got to consolidate it all together. And if you give me some links, then I'll do that for you. That's no problem.
Happy to
I think
do
Mark's
so.
next.
The tweet that I was quoting, I put in the chat of this space.
Is there a chat? I don't know. I'm moderating. I don't know. I can't. I'm blind.
I'll tag you on it.
We're 2 o'clock in the morning for me. So anyway, so let Mark have his word. Be short, Mark. I know you like to rabbit on like me.
I do. Just want to say thank you, Tia and Andrew. This has been great, very entertaining, very educational. I'm not advocating that we play this game, but I'm just staring at the 5 for the Future pledges page. And I'm just trying to unpack kind of maybe Matt's methodology on this, but maybe I'm taking it too literally. If we just looked at this and searched or sorted by total hours, and then we figured out each company, how many man hours they have total, so to speak, right? Like how many employees or whatever. And then we just did that little math equation. Are we suggesting that WPEngine is the biggest offender? Is that effectively what Matt's kind of saying there? I find that slightly hard to believe per se, but then
I don't think it is. No, I don't. And I've rudely interrupted you. No, I don't think it is. I think they're one of the offenders, and an offender is the wrong thing. We have to remember that the 5 for the Future is completely voluntary. Completely. And the licensing is again, we've got the philosophy which was written by Matt and his cohorts or whatever. You've got to I like to take it literally. I even today had somebody have a go at me or see someone have a go at them about contributing. We have to take this rhetoric away from WordPress and be what we say we are, which is a friendly, welcoming community. And if I have another contributor say to me, well, what are you contributing? I'm going to go mental at them because I don't care. I want to contribute as much as I can. And just because I haven't got a GitLab or GitHub, or just because I don't contribute to WordPress core, doesn't mean that I'm not a contributor. My personal opinion is that anybody that uses WordPress is a contributor. If I promote WordPress, if I say to my clients, I prefer to do it in WordPress rather than Shopify, Squarespace, or Wix, then I am contributing to WordPress. If I set up a thing with my mate called Dave, which is Fun WP, to try and get some money into WordPress, then I'm contributing. Everybody that uses WordPress is a contributor. And I think the damage that can be done from what Matt did on Friday was that he opened up the floodgates for people to be holier than thou. And that's not and I have said this to him, personally, it's not an issue. I don't have any problem speaking truth to power. And Matt is a very powerful individual. He's in a very powerful position. And if you lead by example, which the example is, these guys aren't contributing enough, I'm going to have a go at them, then everybody, even the contributors, are going to go, well, you're not a contributor. Why have you got any right to say anything about it? And the reason I've got a right is because Matt told me that I've got a right on Friday. And he keeps on telling us every day. WordPress is as much mine as anybody else's. And that's my rant over. I think Jesse, I really want you to speak. It's your turn.
Thanks. I just wanted to add some clarity around a recurring theme in the comments across different threads where folks are saying that this is just a competitive play. I work for Automatic, and I'm one of many, many people who have a designation of help the hosts. Earlier this year, Matt wrote a blog post on his personal site talking about this designation. And that designation comes with a mission. Every WordPress is precious to you, wherever it grew up. You want every host to be as successful as possible because the real threat is from big proprietary folks outside the community. And I just wanted to add that because I think it adds or speaks to Matt's motivations around promoting hosts who have, really supported the WordPress ecosystem and provided great experiences regardless of their competitive state. So I'm not trying to comment on all the other nuances here, but I did want to just add some clarity around this not being anything to do with being a competitor, because I can tell you firsthand as someone who works for Automatic and works with hosting companies that my mission is to make as many hosts as successful as possible using any WordPress products out there.
And thanks for the clarity on that. That's what I believe as well, because there's plenty of room out there. There's estimates of between 500 million and 1 billion WordPress websites out there. And I both host with people that have been invested in by Automatic, and I host with people that give their 5 for the future, and it's around about maybe at the moment 3 to 5%. But I don't host with them because of their 5 for the future. I host with them because they're good, and the fact that they give back to WordPress is awesome, right? And Jesse, you've been speaking at WordCamps and going to WordCamps ever. I just want your perspective. I know you're an Automatic employee. I know it's maybe awkward for you, but you were at this WordCamp. I think I saw some photographs of you wandering around. I'm not sure whether I did or not, but
you did.
I did, yeah. So you've been a speaker, you've been an attendee, you've been an advocate for WordPress for years now. What was your feeling of reading the room on Friday night?
Yeah, actually, in the section that I was sitting in, it was pretty apparent to me that it was hitting home for a lot of folks. I think that a lot of this stuff was coming to light for the first time. It's really important that we get it right. I can say pretty confidently that at least the people around me, there was a big room, that they were actually fearful of the way in which private equity can tear at the heart of something like open source. And Matt had given some examples of how that had happened previously. So I think that was really resonating with folks. And to kind of double back real quick, one of the things that when we speak to hosting companies, their first impression of Automatic is that we're a competitor, and so we have to actually convince them that we have a long-term interest in building a relationship with them, because we want WordPress to succeed. And so one of the core things that I say to every single WordPress hosting company is that the moment that they're providing they're paying to acquire a customer, which is not hard these days. Hosting can be very quickly an acquisition business. You put enough money behind advertising, you can acquire a customer.
Sure.
And so if you're free to claim that you're associated, I'm not even speaking about anyone specifically, I'm just saying in a theoretical situation, a hosting company could come out of the woodwork immediately, claim that they're associated with WordPress or in their official WordPress ecosystem play, acquire customers, and they could provide a terrible WordPress experience. Or they could be even a great hosting company trying their best to provide a good hosting experience, and they're not doing that. And what happens to that WordPress user? And I think it's really important that we remember that the WordPress community, while very vocal, does not actually make up the majority of WordPress users around the world, and that the vast majority of WordPress users are new to the space or don't know that everything that comes behind the community and the way in which we operate. And so if they have a poor experience with WordPress, they don't just shift hosts and go to another hosting company, because very often they think that is the WordPress experience. And I would encourage everyone to talk to agencies, talk to hosts, do this research on yourself. I'm seeing a whole bunch of 100s because I know that people are agreeing with me, because they know that this is a real situation. If that WordPress customer has a terrible experience, they leave WordPress, the ecosystem. So then they go off to a closed proprietary system, and that is bad for all of WordPress. So what I've been saying personally for a very long time is that every single person playing in this space has a responsibility to provide an excellent WordPress experience, because it may be the only experience that person has with WordPress.
I have to agree. Now, we've got Patrick from GridPane who agrees with that, and that's there. I've seen Marcus there. I bigged you up on the WP dot whatever. Marcus, apply to be a speaker and we'll let you in. We'll keep this going as long as we can stay awake. We've got some plugin product owners as well. Anna Herko is CEO of Croco Block as well. But yeah, I've got a speaker that wants to speak. It could be, who wants to speak next? I'll just leave it open.
Oh, sorry about that.
Oh, Tia, no, feel free to go ahead. I can go right after you.
No, I was just going to tell him that your hand was up and make sure that you were going next. So continue, please.
Appreciate it. I'm like the introvert in the corner of the room with my hand up, just waiting patiently. Yeah, so I had 2 points I just want to kind of make kind of quickly. One was there's a lot of confusion around the trademark and who has an official trademark agreement with the foundation. I think that could really be cleared up on the site. I think the WordPress Foundation should actively list who has agreements and what the foundation gets in return monetarily, or maybe it's an agreement with the company to say, oh, we're going to, up our Five for the Future involvement by this much, or, whatever it is. I think that would be extremely great transparency to have, because that was one of the things that Matt had brought up about the confusion about WPEngine and some people thinking that was official, which I can't really speak to that. I haven't ever heard of that, but I did want to note that the case that Matt had made about WPEngine is actually all the hosts that do WordPress hosting have the similar issue where they, under their products, they have WordPress hosting, and some of them even have WooCommerce hosting. Some of them have the WordPress logo or even the Woo logo. So I think there's just a big blanket unknown there about, okay, what is covered and allowed in the trademark agreements and who has a trademark agreement. And I think that's a bit confusing right now, especially because the WPEngine's called out for that, and that appears to be a bad thing. So it would be just really good to know which companies are doing it right and what they're doing for that. And the other side of this is Five for the Future is important. I think a lot of companies strive to meet that as close as they can. It takes time. Obviously, if they hire people that aren't in positions where this is like some companies actually have full-time roles to become a contributor to WordPress, which is an amazing role to have for sure. But other people are hired directly to do work on a team for a host or for a product team, and that's not actually under their umbrella of things that their role was supposed to cover. So whenever that person asks to become involved, there's a lot of business thoughts. They have to decide whether or not that person's rate is going to be okay to deal with. That's going to be, some people are cheaper, some people are more expensive. So obviously, if you get the most expensive person at the company and they say, oh, I want to be a contributor to WordPress, there's a little more thought in that compared to someone who may be maybe a support person or someone who is paid less. So I think that some of the things that Matt had said about people coming to him from WPEngine or whoever else saying that they were not able to contribute when they wanted to, I think there's a lot more nuance to that, the whole thing there. Obviously, I've been at companies, not my current company, but previous companies where I wanted to contribute, but I wasn't really, not necessarily allowed to, but wasn't given that kind of space. And I've been at companies when I said I want to do this, and they said, yeah, well, let's do it, but show us the value. And so there's a lot of sales there that you kind of have to do on your own. So when I talk about Five to the Future, I wanted to explicitly say this is entirely focused on WordPress. Five for the Future does not take advantage of the rest of the stack. So companies like GoDaddy or whoever else that are contributing to JavaScript or PHP or any other part of this whole entire stack, those aren't getting counted. So it's really, really difficult to say, okay, you're not pulling your weight in WordPress, but we're also, as a group, the entire industry is not pulling their weight for all the rest of the stack. PHP desperately needs more support. So does so many other organizations behind the things that we're using. If you look at your SBOMs on GitHub right now, I guarantee you will find most of those people you hadn't even thought about sponsoring. Look at your SBOM on GitHub. You can see the list of packages, the maintainers who have lots of stars who are getting close to nothing. I think these are important places to spend that time and money. I think WordPress itself is important to use as well, but I think we should not lose sight of the original intention here.
is Five for the Future makes a lot of sense, but it makes a lot of sense across the board. Don't forget about everyone else.
I totally agree with you. And actually, somebody did tweet that Automatic are the top financial contributor to PHP. So there's something there. And part of the issue, I think, is researching this and getting the true figures. It's it's very, I said in my meetup talk at WP London, WordPress is a very convoluted and vulnerable situation, notwithstanding the fact that it's basically one guy is in charge, right? So we have a lot of work to do to educate people of how WordPress works, PHP, JavaScript, React, whatever, and how those situations are being funded. So it's a very, very difficult situation for new users. To be honest, I don't think users that in general, the plumber, the electrician, the yoga person that wants to build a WordPress website cares a hoot about all of this. I think we're the only ones that care. And to give somebody else some space, John Brown's next, and then Courtney's still got her hand up as well. So John Brown.
I spoke earlier, but I did want to add something to what Scott was saying and Five for the Future page, because I think it gets lost that is self-reported. And as far as I know, not really well audited in terms of the hours people are claiming. But it's also worth noting there are thousands of people every day contributing to WordPress that aren't on that page. I've certainly never put our contributor hours on that page, and it's several hours a week, every week for the last 18 years, right? It's just never been, the vanity we needed. Yeah, you just got to keep that in mind.
And I agree with that. There are a lot of contributors out there that are doing a fantastic job, and without them, I couldn't do my job and I couldn't make money. So there you go. Who else wants to speak? Who's there? Put your hand up. Jeff's still got his hand up, so he's still listening. If nobody else wants to speak, I think if Tia's microphone is working, she can do the honors and say thank you very much for coming to her space, and also thanks very much for me being allowed to be a co-host.
Anybody else? All right. Well, yes, definitely thank you for co-hosting, Andrew. You did an amazing job. Matt showing up was a giant surprise. I had no idea he was coming, and it was great that he came in and he sat down and he talked with everyone. I appreciate all the speakers and all the questions. We have some people posting resources in the space thread that we can catch up on. And other than that, I'm just glad you guys all came and that we could talk about this as a community and how to move forward and clear up some issues. So that being said, you guys have a good night. You can reach out to me or Andrew with any questions, feedback, resources, or whatever. And hope everyone has a good night. So let's move forward.
So I just want to say thank you very much, and we're going to close it in seconds. So really appreciate you guys and girls and people taking the time to listen to what's been going on. And yeah, thanks to Matt for turning up. I think that's extraordinary. So well done all.
Yeah, that was amazing.
Okay, I'm off.
All
Cheers.
right. All right, cheers, everyone. Bye-bye. Thank you.